Keir Starmer, the worst, least popular Prime Minister ever, wants to go back to the EU. Yeah. 10,024 migrants have crossed the Channel. We're on course to have more than last year. I'd like to park that fact. Yeah. I am absolutely with you and the millions of people who think this bloke is a disgrace. He has no plan, he has no conviction, he has no backbone. I don't buy this government at all. It makes me furious with the shambles that was the Tory party.
In a fiery exposé, Jeremy Kyle delivers shocking revelations about Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He exposes the cracks in his leadership and questions whether he has what it takes to lead Britain into the future. Keir Starmer, once heralded as a potential saviour for the Labour Party, now finds himself under siege. With Jeremy Kyle's Bombshell live broadcast, the public is questioning whether Starmer is fit to continue leading the country. But how did it all go so wrong?
It's the people voted for this motley... They are imploding, aren't they? Excuse the pun?
Well, I think you need a two-pronged strategy here because, listen, like smashing the gangs is very noble, and he's been over to Italy, yes. and he's talked about, you know, sort of flushing out all of this, you know, the people traffickers that operate in the Mediterranean.
Very noble, great words.
Yeah, exactly, and it's good. But as a Labour minister, and honestly pointed out in the Times as well, as long as there's always going to be a pull factor, you're always going to have smuggling gangs.
Hey, quick favour before we move on. If you find this political content interesting, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Most of you watch without subscribing and it's totally free, but it helps us out so much. Have you done it yet? Thanks a ton for the support. Now, let's get back to the video.
He said, I'm going to get somebody, a border control man, and eventually he's given it to a guy called Martin Hewitt, who wasn't the first choice, and he's picked up about 200 grand a year. And the first thing out of his mouth today, Martin, to me it smacks of, I'm not taking responsibility, hasn't even started his job, is, I disagree with Starmer. It's not just about that, it's about it.
The Prime Minister has recently promised reforms to overhaul job centres and boost mental health funding, citing a vision of getting more people into work. However, the specifics remain elusive. Is this another empty promise, or does Starmer have a concrete plan? Kyle's scathing commentary left little doubt about his scepticism, pointing to a series of policy failures and missteps that have left millions of Britons disillusioned.
Politicians very rarely do that. I go with Mick in Wallington, John. I think you'd agree. Starmer may want to ignore the election petition, but it's his starter for 10. Council elections and by-elections soon. The people...
One of the most damning aspects of Kyle's criticism centres on Starmer's perceived betrayal of the working class. Labour, once the party of labourers and blue-collar workers, now faces accusations of abandoning its core base. Can Starmer reconcile with the working class voters who feel left behind?
It's to be going backwards. It appears to be going backwards in so many different ways, John, and I'm with you. It's always that I always get angry with people who don't vote. Make your voice. If you want to sign that petition, sign your petition. And I'm not being morbid, and neither is John, by saying it probably won't affect. It will at least send a very, very, very strong message.
Kyle pointed out that Labour's climate policies are costing jobs, with 1,100 workers at Vauxhall's Luton plant set to lose their jobs. The decision to push for clean energy initiatives, while ignoring the potential of domestic oil and gas reserves, has left many questioning the government's priorities. Is this a sign of progressive leadership, or a reckless gamble that risks the livelihoods of ordinary citizens?
Because you want to win the election. I think people are seeing through politicians and policies far more nowadays. That's what I think.
Kyle questioned the logic of importing energy at higher costs when the country has untapped resources beneath its feet. Does genuine concern for the environment drive these decisions, or are they part of a broader agenda that ignores the struggles of everyday Britons?
It was probably a bit cynical. This petition is gathering strength. Starmer has, a few minutes ago, responded to a petition that at this moment is approaching 2,250,000 signatures, basically saying, we don't like the government, we want another election.
While genuine cases deserve support, where is the line between assistance and exploitation? Should taxpayers continue to fund benefits for those who can contribute but choose not to?
Is it me, James? I never quite worked out why the Prime Minister of this country would be on This Morning, and I include Cameron in that. What do you make of Starmer, and what do you make of this petition, my friend?
I mean, on the Starmer point, it's just painful watching him talk, isn't it? It's like he's only recently learned to speak English or something, you know?
Labour's decision to bring in foreign workers while neglecting the potential of its citizens has sparked outrage. Is this a failure of policy or a calculated move to reshape the UK's workforce?
He's so wooden. This is a guy who said that he doesn't have a favourite novel, he doesn't have a favourite song, he doesn't dream, which I just...
He doesn't what?
He doesn't dream. He said in an interview he doesn't ever have any dreams, by which I mean presumably when he's asleep, not just any aspirations either.
Yes, no.
Given the nightmare that he's already putting the country through, as is evidenced by all these people signing this petition.
Jeremy Kyle accused Starmer of dodging accountability, a sentiment echoed by millions of frustrated Britons. Does Starmer realise the impact of his actions? Or is he out of touch with the realities of leadership?
One of the other big news stories of the day is it's basically very, very simple. Women who were born in the 50s were told they could retire at 60. It kept being put back and put back and put back, and they demanded compensation, as Peter Carball was explaining.
From the scandalous handling of WASPy women's compensation to his inability to address pressing economic concerns, Starmer's leadership has been anything but steady. Is this the beginning of the end of his political career?
In opposition, Labour said, yes, this is outrageous. The Tories are a bunch of scapegoats. This is terrible. There was an independent panel. They worked on an amount of money. Now they're in government. Today, Labour have said, you WASPy women ain't getting nouts, having hacked off pensioners and hacked off farmers and hacked off Brexiteers. The next person to hack off is the WASPy women.
Kyle's commentary highlighted how Reform UK is capitalising on Labour's failures, appealing to the disenchanted working class. Is this the beginning of a new era in British politics, or a temporary surge in popularity?
My father would retire at 65. And just to explain to people, to give some, explanation as to why there is such anger about this, you're told you can retire at 60, then it's 62, 64, 66. And those 6 years, as you quite rightly say, if you're not in employment and you've made plans to retire at 60, were very, very hard years. What surprised me when I heard this today was...
With millions signing a petition for a new general election, it's clear that public trust in Labour is waning. Can Starmer turn things around? Or is it too late to salvage his reputation? Are warned of the dangers of Labour's close ties with trade unions? Are the generous pay raises given to union workers setting the stage for economic collapse?
Agreed was minimal, in my opinion. How does £3,000 cover 6 years of pension contributions?
Well, that wasn't what it was covering. That wasn't what it wasn't covering the lost years of state pension. It was compensation for the lack of notice that we received about the increase to our state pension
What
age.
about the monies that you should have got in those 6 years?
In one of his most controversial moves, Starmer announced plans to send a team of civil servants to Brussels to renegotiate Brexit terms. Is this a bold step towards closer EU ties? Or a betrayal of the referendum result?
Wept over that injustice, and the law was changed, and there was nothing that we can do about that. But there was something that we could do about the lack of notice that we received, which is what we did. And we went down the route of the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman, who is the watchdog for Parliament. And he agreed that we were right and that there had been maladministration.
Kyle's criticism of this decision resonated with many, who feel that Starmer disregards the will of the people. Could this move backfire and cost him his seat?
And this is something that I spoke about quite a lot when I said that opposition, you know this, Brendan, right? Opposition's, I guess it's a bit more exciting sometimes because you can just basically be an attack dog. There's a film, I can't even know the name of it. I think it's a ridiculous American film. And there's a part where the guy says, this is how you win elections, ladies and gentlemen. You gather together a bunch of disillusioned, disenfranchised people and you tell them what's wrong with their lot in life and you tell them who's to blame for it.
Keir Starmer's tenure as Labour leader has been defined by a paradoxical mixture of bold promises and apparent incompetence. His inability to deliver on key issues, despite having significant political capital, has exposed cracks in his leadership. For instance, his handling of the Labour Party's stance on Brexit has left both Remainers and Leavers unsatisfied. The public, increasingly sceptical of his capabilities, is questioning whether his leadership is sustainable.
He's hopelessly out of his depth on basically everything. That he's drunk the Kool-Aid, as they say, in thinking, as we've said before, that if you just spend years and years saying the Tories are terrible, the terrible, terrible Tories, and when we get in, it'll be fine because we're good people, it hasn't worked out like that. And I think the fundamental mistake that he's made about this is to conflate unpopular things with difficult things.
The dissonance is evident in his struggle to inspire the working class. The next, his policies seem to alienate the working class, which critics argue lacks substance. Could Starmer's inability to inspire confidence among Labour's traditional base spell the end of his political ambitions? Could Starmer's inability to inspire his genuineness spell the end of his political ambitions?
I think you're right. He's a bleeding robot. And I think they go from day to day being reactive rather than proactive, and that's where I think the Labour Party. I mean, look, what was this today? Liz Kendall. Did you see that interview on Sky at the weekend with Trevor? It was painful. She says a rise in people self-diagnosing with mental health problems is fueling Britain's worklessness crisis. We've been talking about this for flipping ages.
However, under Starmer's leadership, Labour has often failed to live up to its promises. This disconnect is most evident in its approach to economic recovery and job creation. Starmer pledged to create opportunities and reduce unemployment, yet recent job losses, such as those in Luton's van manufacturing plant, have painted a different picture.
It's run by an academic elite at the top who do not understand what it is to be on the streets. We don't have enough policemen and women getting intel, and that's how you lock prisoners and criminals up. We don't have that. Police are too scared to do anything in case there will be communal tensions.
Many voters feel betrayed, particularly as Labour's policies increasingly reflect those of corporate interests rather than grassroots concerns. Labour's handling of environmental initiatives is another contentious area. The push for sustainable energy solutions has led to the closure of key industries, leaving thousands jobless. Is Labour capable of regaining trust, or has Starmer alienated his voter base beyond repair?
Government, you know, I just think the emotion Keir Starmer gives me is depression. Whenever I see him, I just feel really sad and depressed. He's so useless at the job. His priorities are all wrong. He can't pronounce the word hostages. He's a hypocrite. He's an idiot. Everything about this government, you know, with most governments, you can be politically supportive or politically opposed. That's how you...
Jeremy Kyle's recent criticism of Starmer has created waves across the political landscape. Known for his straightforward and often confrontational style, Kyle's takedown of the Labour leader on live television was both scathing and impactful. His statements resonated with many working-class voters who feel let down by Labour's direction.
Interesting as well, sort of from the side, I was old enough, I've said this before, to know what a socialist government was going to bring. I knew that during the election campaign. What I think becomes really relevant, and why I think he's massively unpopular, Jay, is I actually don't believe there's a plan. I actually genuinely, you made a really good point. With Thatcher, even with Blair, I felt like there was a plan, like it or lump it, come with me, you voted to come with me, I'll tell you the highs, there'll be a few lows.
Kyle's arguments focused on the party's failure to address key issues such as unemployment, immigration and economic inequality. His assertion that Starmer cannot connect with ordinary people has sparked heated debates. Can Starmer recover from such a public and damning critique? Or is Jeremy Kyle's influence a sign of a broader shift in public sentiment?
For him, it was just getting there. And it was really easy, the Ming Vase thing, say nothing, give nothing. I don't think there's a plan. I keep saying this every week. I don't think there's conviction. I don't think there's belief. I don't think there's anything organic about Keir Starmer. I think I think you're right, he's a bleeding robot.
As Kyle's revelations continue to dominate headlines, the question remains, what's next for Labour? Can the party regroup and refocus? Or will it crumble under the weight of its contradictions?
But with this government, I just feel exhausted by them and by their uselessness. And I think that was really summed up in his conference speech and the conference more broadly.
The coming months will be crucial for Starmer and his team. Will they rise to the occasion and prove their critics wrong? Or will they falter and pave the way for a new political landscape in Britain? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Oh, and before you go, click here to check out the next video.